Mr. Jose Francisco Avila. Jose, good morning. Are you there with us? I think he might be listening, but are you there with us? Oh, not quite yet. We're trying to reconnect with Jose. I think he's listening to, and he has listened to all that I've said, but we now need to hear his voice.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning to you. How are you doing? Good to hear you. And thanks for agreeing to be on our program this morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good morning, Jose.
I didn't hear it.
Well, this is just Marlon adding his good morning to you. Cecil said good morning, so I'm just adding my good mornings also.
Oh, okay. Good morning.
Bunta Binafi.
Bunta Binafi.
You see, you're the one who taught Marlon that a few years ago. He's bragging about it, you know?
Am I on the air now?
Yes, you're on the air. You're live.
You're live, actually. You're live. And the listeners are hearing you.
On that note, let me say, Mabuiga, Hunsung, Niduhenyu, Yaron Yurume, Lidaliri, Bungyu, Luma Hahari, Wayunagu. Greetings to all my family in Urume, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, in the name of God and the spirit of our ancestors. It is a pleasure and an honor to participate in this radio program and to be able to address my brothers and sisters in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, Urume or Hairuna. And I use all those terms because, as we know, there are different names, but we are all one people. And it's a pleasure and an honor, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have and have a conversation.
Okay. Just before we go any further, can you give us some clarity on the word Garifuna and the word Garinago? If we can...
Absolutely. Garifuna is the name of course, of us as a people, but it's singular. And it's also the name of the language. Garinagu is plural in the Garifuna language. So usually you will find that most of us use Garinagu when we use the plural, although we know that in Spanish and in English, usually people just add the S to Garifuna to make it plural, which is okay. But in the Garifuna language, Garinagu, it's the plural. It's the proper plural.
Oh, okay. So when we talk about the collective people, it's Garinagu. But if I'm speaking about one person, Jose Alvarez, I can say Jose Alvarez is a Garifuna.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right.
Jose, let's start with something on you. First of all, you are based in the United States right now in New York. Correct. But how did you get there and from where?
Okay. Absolutely. Yes. My name is Jose Francisco Avila. And I always like to say when I speak in public that the reason for that is because my ancestors were exiled from Saint Vincent and the Grenadines in 1797. Otherwise, my name would have been Joseph Francis and probably Chatouye or probably any of the other Garifuna names. But as a result of the exile in 1797 of my ancestors who landed on an island called Roatan, we know that part of the history, but as a result of that, I was born in the country of Honduras. I was born in a Garifuna village called Cristales, which is located in a city that today is known as Trujillo. Trujillo was the first capital of Honduras under Spanish colonization, and it was the Spanish with whom our ancestors negotiated to transfer themselves from the island of Roatan to the mainland of Honduras. So the first Garifuna village in Honduras is called Punta Gorda, which is located in the island of Roatan. The second Garifuna village and the first on the mainland, it's Cristales, where I was born. So that's where I lived the first 15 years of my life, was in the city of La Ceiba, also in Honduras. And that was until 1969 when I migrated with my parents to the city of Boston, Massachusetts. where I spent 12 years. That's where I completed my education, began my professional career, eventually relocated to Dallas, Texas, where I spent 16 years, and I'm now in New York City. In a nutshell, that's my history. That's how I got from, again, Honduras to where I am today, New York City.
All right, great. So tell us about your how do you make your living in New York?
I spent, as a matter of fact, now I am happily retired after spending 30 years with Thomson Reuters, a little itty-bitty company called Thomson Reuters, with whom I spent 30 years. I'm an accountant by training, and I started with Thomson Reuters. I like to tell the young people back in the days when computers were the size of rooms or houses called mainframe. So I've been in the technology industry, actually developing software for the past 30 years. And I've seen the transition from those huge computers to today being able to talk to you through my iPad, through Skype. It's the evolution of technology. But again, I spent 30 years in different capacities. When I retired from Thomson Reuters 2 years ago, I was actually, what my title was, Client Service Manager. I was responsible for a territory, sales territory, that included Florida, New York, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. Most of my clients, all of my clients, as a matter of fact, were accounting firms. So that's what I did. And like I said, for the past 2 years, I've been retired, so I'm dedicating more time to the Garifuna cause and some personal projects.
And of course, you are the president of the Garifuna Coalition of the USA.
That is correct.
Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah,
as president.
Absolutely. I'm the president and one of the founding members of the Garifuna Coalition. And I'd like to emphasize that not only am I a founding member, I am one of the original 3 directors that had to sign the Articles of Incorporation to found the Garifuna Coalition. It was myself, my good friend Dionisia Amaya, who is now resting in peace, and a beautiful Garifuna sister by the name of Abelina Roches. We were the 3 who signed the Articles of Incorporation to incorporate the Garifuna Coalition. I am one of about 21, 22 founding members. Over the years, of course, as it tends to happen in organizations, that number has been decreasing, and other members have gone, and while others have come in. And as a result, I am the only remaining founding member of the Garifuna Coalition, which was founded in 1998. And it's important for me to give you a little background how the Garifuna Coalition came into existence. I actually started my advocating for the Garifuna community back in 1988. And I like to tell the story that it was, I had what is called today an epiphany, and it was realizing that I had lost contact with my people once I became a professional in the United States. And not only my people, my friends, but also families. And there was a trip that I made to Los Angeles, a business trip, and I had to spend the weekend. And I came to the realization, and I started analyzing myself. And I said, Jose, you have achieved every type of goal that you have set to yourself. But the one question that kept coming through my mind was, what have you done for your people? What have you done for your people? I flew back to Dallas, Texas, and I told my wife about that experience. And I said to her, I want you to know that I consider that to be a calling. And I want you to know that I have decided to answer that calling. That was the beginning of my involvement in reaching out to the Garifuna community. And since I knew that the largest Garifuna community was located in New York City, I started my contact. I started building a database of names, contact information. And mind you, this is before the days where everyone has personal computers. But that was how I started. And then in 1989, February 5th, 1989, to be exact, I organized here in the Bronx the first community meeting to talk about this idea. And the idea was the need for us to come together to deal with the issues that affected our community. So February 5th, 1989, I organized a meeting. About 25 people showed up. Amongst them, my friend that I mentioned earlier, Miss Dionisia Amaya. And that was the beginning of my involvement with the New York community. I also like to say, Cecil, and everyone who's listening, the fact that it was February 5th, 1989. I have 2 children. My son is 35 years old. My daughter, who's my second child, was born April 4th, 1989. So I have a constant reminder that I have spent a lifetime advocating for the Garifuna community. But that was the beginning. Fast forward, what that led to was that in 1996, here in New York, a group of Garinagu and myself involved from Dallas, Texas, organized what became known as the Committee to commemorate the arrival of the Garinagu to Honduras. That committee led to the commemoration of the 200th anniversary of the arrival of the Garifunas to Central America, Honduras, in 1797. And that event was organized in April of 1797. Thousands of people traveled from all over the world to be with us there. We call that the Garifuna Bicentennial. And I like to make reference that was the beginning of the modern Garifuna movement. But again, in a nutshell, that's my involvement. That's my history with the Garifuna cause. Again, going back 27 years ago, participating in the celebration of the Garifuna Bicentennial and just about every event dealing with the Garifuna since then. And by the way, I must also mention that as part of the celebration, we extended an invitation to then Prime Minister James Mitchell, who did fly to Honduras, participated with us in the celebrations in La Ceiba, and he also flew to Roatan, where we unveiled the only statue to honor Chief Joseph Chatuye in this continent. And that was in the Garifuna village of Punta Gorda, where that monument still stands. Again, in a nutshell, and I'll give you more details, that's sort of my background when it comes to the Garifuna movement.
That's great. Who's the coalition, the Garifuna Coalition of the USA? Give us a sense of how many groups are in that coalition and the membership.
As I mentioned, there were 21 organizations, 21, yes, that were founding members of the Garifuna Coalition. Again, as I mentioned, as differences tends to happen in organizational efforts, organizations have come and gone. At this point, the coalition is has about 10 members, but mostly it functions as a non-profit organization, which actually took upon its mission of promoting the Garifuna culture, Garifuna identity. And it's important for me to say that part of the reason for the changes in the membership of the organization had to do with philosophical differences. We kind of resemble what's going on right now.
Okay.
And it has to do with the fact that, of course, as immigrants, and I'll speak specifically to the immigrants here in New York, we tend to start with hometown associations, which are usually interested or deal with the issues of our local hometowns back in the home country. That was the idea in most Garifuna organizations here. When we started the Garifuna Coalition in 1998, there had been, as a matter of fact, it's important for me to mention that in 1990, the modern Garifuna organization, the first modern era Garifuna organization was organized, which was called Mujeres Garinagu en Marcha Pro Educación in Spanish. Garinagu women moving forward pro education. That's the first modern Garifuna organization. What do I mean by modern? is the first organization that does not deal with the specific issues of a particular hometown back home. It dealt with the issue of their education in this case, and education here in New York City. The founding member of Mugama was the lady that I already mentioned before, Miss Dionisia Amaya, plus Avelina Roches, who were also founding members of the Garifuna Coalition. And where I'm leading with that is the fact that when the Garifuna Coalition was founded, a lot of the attitude, a lot of the mentality was to continue that pattern. There were some of us who felt that we needed to change and we needed to focus attention here in the United States and specifically here in New York City because we had issues here that were not being addressed. So that's eventually what led to the slow retirement, for lack of a better word, of people leaving. And that's what has led to the smaller number that exists today. And what happened also was the fact that dealing with the issues in New York meant that it was difficult to sort of try to make decisions based on committees or based on organizations that had differences of opinion when it came to the mission of the organization. And again, that's sort of what led was the fact that those people who felt that they wanted to continue to deal with the issues of their hometown association eventually started moving out. Those of us who felt that we needed to concentrate here in the United States eventually moved on. And I will say that as a result of that, I was one of the first members to leave the Garifuna Coalition and eventually came back. I was invited to come back as people began to see that what I was proposing and others that eventually left was the right idea. And I was invited, that was back in 2002, and I've been an active member since then. I started as the treasurer. But again, it's a long explanation, but it's important to say why the number of members have reduced, again, from 21 to approximately 10 today.
Okay, and Jose, those 10 members, if you like, organizations, do they cover the whole spectrum of across Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, Belize, Nicaragua, or are they focused on one particular country?
No, as a matter of fact, that was one, again, when I talk about the modern Garifuna movement, also led to that, the fact that we were no longer just talking about a particular hometown, neither were we talking about a particular country in the diaspora. Here in New York, the three existing diasporas are from Honduras, which is the largest, followed by Belize, and followed by Guatemala. Okay, those are the diasporas. There's no members of the diaspora actively participating with us from Nicaragua. That's about the only country in the diaspora that's not represented here. But to answer your question, yes, we have continuously made an effort to work with representatives from all. For instance, one of the organizations that we work is called Comunidad Garifuna Guatemalteca, Guatemalan Garifuna Community Organization, which actually represents the Garifunas from Guatemala. We also work with an organization from Belize, which it's interesting because although it's really, how can I explain? A spiritual organization. It's the most active Belizean organization when it comes to dealing with Garifuna issues, and they have worked very closely with us. The name of the organization is actually the Committee for the Garifuna Settlement Mass. They are based in Brooklyn, which is where the Garifuna community from Belize is located, and they are active. But again, yes, we do have representation from Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras, which are the diasporas represented here in New York City.
There are various people put various numbers on the number of the Garifunas that are in the diaspora. What would be a reasonable figure?
Oh, you're absolutely right. I have seen it from 500 to 400,000 to lately 800,000 and so forth. I will, of course, I'm not going to argue because I will say that there are really no official numbers except for the ones that each particular country has done on their own, and typically that has been conducted or led by the Garifuna organizations themselves in the particular diaspora country. So I wouldn't argue that with 800,000, I would say yes when you look at it globally, and it's considering the fact that Honduras is the largest population. The largest population still resides in Central America, in Honduras, Belize, Guatemala, and Nicaragua. But when you add the fact that the largest diaspora community outside of Central America is in New York City, but then when you add the fact that there are Garifuna communities today in just about every major city in the U.S., Los Angeles, Louisiana, Chicago, Houston, Texas, even Dallas, Texas to a smaller extent. And then when you consider the fact that there are Garifunas in different continents, it's different. Not everyone today is immigrating to the U.S. So that's why I will not dispel that number. Because when you look at it globally, yes, it's probably reaching 800,000. And I will also add something else that I started saying when I started researching, for instance, the census numbers here, which is what we used in the Garifuna Coalition back in 2009 when we decided to promote and launch the first official campaign to participate in the census and to identify ourselves as Garifuna for the 2010 census. And one of the things that I used to, one of my premises was, we have been here since the 30s, the Garinagu in New York City, the United States per se. And if we have been here through the 30s, we're talking that now is almost 85 years that we have been here. Just through the natural biological process, to me it was obvious that the population had expanded. The fact that it couldn't be counted officially, that was a different story. But just again, time itself and so forth. And the same thing has happened. Again, when I was growing up in Honduras, when I first migrated here, most of the migration was to the U.S. Now I know of Garinagu in Switzerland. I know Garinagu in Spain. As a matter of fact, I met with a young man recently who is in Honduras. He's a journalist, and he's currently conducting a project on Garifuna migration. And it was fascinating to see what he's discovering, how the notion of Garifuna diaspora has changed over the years. But again, all of that to say that I will not contradict the 8,000. I will qualify by saying that most of the numbers on us are not official.
But the UN has given recognition and respect to the Garifuna cause in many ways. Can you tell us a bit about that?
The UN
United Nations.
What was that?
No, I'm saying I'm aware. In fact, I've read someplace where the UN, the United Nations, have given recognition to the Garifuna cause. Oh,
okay. Well, that's UNESCO.
Yes. Oh, UNESCO. Okay.
Yeah, that was UNESCO. That was back on May 18, 2001. For the first time, UNESCO presented what is known as Masterpiece of the Oral and Intangible Heritage of Humanity. It was a way to recognize different cultures around the world. And on May 18, during the first presentation, 19 cultures around the world were presented with that recognition, and the Garifuna language, music, and dance were part of that first 19 cultures around the world to be recognized as masterpieces of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity. And what that recognition meant was that these were cultures that were significant to humanity, and therefore it was important for these cultures to be safeguarded. And that, again, in the Garifuna culture is one of those. And I will add this about the significance: language, music, and dance. Language, of course, the fact that there are those who think that the Garifuna language is near extinction, so the UN felt that it was important to preserve it. Now, what's the significance of the language? This is a little known fact that is usually not mentioned about the Garifuna language. The fact that it's an Amerindian, it's actually Arawakan, which means that is the original language that the Caribs, the Arawaks, then the Tainos, that was the language of the indigenous people of the Caribbean. And again, through process of adaptation and assimilation, that was how our people, our ancestors, started speaking the language. And what's interesting is that today, we are the only ones in the whole world who speak it and maintain it. And that's why UNESCO recognized the Garifuna language as significant to be safeguarded and to be considered a masterpiece of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity. Why dance and music? Because they also recognize that today the language, especially when it comes to the young people, is really being preserved through music and the traditions of the previous generations that is now continued with the young people. It's interesting that there are a lot of Garifuna young people singing Garifuna today who don't actually speak it, but they are actually singing it. So that's the significance of the recognition. And again, this was in May 18, 2001. UNESCO proclaimed the Garifuna among 19 cultures as masterpieces of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity.
Jose, there are some who make reference to what they call the Garifuna Nation. Does your organization and do you share that conception of a Garifuna Nation? Is that the way you all look at it?
Well, let me start by saying that, again, I've been, I mentioned, this is my 27th year in this movement, so I know everything that has transcended since that time to here. And I mentioned before, and this takes me back to 1997, again, or the celebration of the Garifuna bicentennial in Honduras. After that celebration, those of us who participated in that committee, which was made out of different organizations, we came back and the question was, how do we continue that momentum? How do we continue to partner together? Because the bicentennial is gone. April is 1997 is gone. What do we do? And we kept in touch with each other. And then 1998, by that time I was here in New York, my sister, Mirta Colon, who is one of the prominent Garifuna leaders and one of the most actives here in New York, called a meeting. He actually called it a retreat, where this retreat, it was in May, and it was in Brooklyn. And we locked ourselves from Friday evening to Sunday afternoon. And we invited Celio Alvarez Casildo from Honduras was here. There was representation from Mr. Felix Miranda from Belize participated in the process. We also had Mr. Martin Bermudez from Guatemala. The whole diaspora was represented there. And the discussion revolved around, again, how do we continue this momentum? It was there that we decided that the best way to continue it was to create an organization of organizations. We kicked around various names, and one of those names was actually the Garifuna Nation. That was one of the names that was considered. And eventually we settled on the Garifuna Coalition. That was the birth of the Garifuna Coalition. That's how we came about that. And we decided that why wouldn't we call it the Garifuna Nation? Again, at that time, we were barely establishing relationships with our brothers and sisters in the different diasporas, in the different countries. We didn't really have that diplomatic relationship with the different government officials and so forth. So that's why we felt that, we need to organize ourselves first and then eventually be able to do that. So to answer your question, I hear the term, but that's not the first time that term has been mentioned. And as a matter of fact, I have a document from 1998 with the name. And as a matter of fact, I gave that document to some of the people who are now members of what is being promoted out there as the Garifuna Nation. Nothing against the Garifuna Nation. But again, I have a long path in this movement. My issue with the Garifuna Nation is the fact that I recently published a document that I call Garifuna Nonprofits in New York. And I found that there are 30 Garifuna organizations registered with the New York State corporations as nonprofits. And I didn't find the registration of the Garifuna Nation. I know that it's not registered in any other state, but again, because I do believe in formality and credibility, and that is attained to formal documents, that's the beginning of my issue with the organization. Secondly, I know for a fact that most of the Garifunas, and this is a fact, most of the Garifunas in the diaspora, out of those 800,000, most of them are truly bilingual. And it's Garifuna Spanish, or it's English and Spanish. That's the largest population. And everything that I see is written in the English language. I don't really see representation of the Garifuna organizations in Belize. Belize is the one role model when it comes to Garifuna organizations, because there's only one national organization, which is the Belize Council of Garifuna. The National Council of Garifunas. That's the only organization in Belize. And they have been in existence for over 33 years. And I remember I've been dealing with the National Garifuna Council since 1991. In Honduras, the most prominent organization is Organización de Desarrollo Étnico Comunitario, the organization of ethnic community development. There's also OFRANE, Organización Fraternal Negra, the Black Fraternal Organization of Honduras. Those are the two prominent organizations in Honduras. Then you have Guatemala, where you have ONEGUA, Organización Negra Guatemalteca, the Black Organization of Guatemala. And then you have, which is an active organization. Then you have organizations in Nicaragua, organic, Organización Garifuna Nicaragua, Garifuna Organization of Nicaragua, led by Ms. Kenzie Sembola. I mention this because none of those organizations are part of the Garifuna Nation. So that's where I come from when it comes to that term. I was approached. I started the conversation with some of the members who are personal friends. As a matter of fact, one of them, we've been friends for over 20 years. And actually, I distanced myself because I didn't like the approach that was taken. And what was that approach? I'm a true believer that we need to come together. It is 218 years ago that we were exiled, and we spread around, and slowly but surely we started putting together Chatoyer's people, and that's what I promote. That's what I want to continue. What I will not promote is attacking other Garifuna organizations. What I will not promote is attacking other Garifuna leaders. What I will not promote is undermining the local existing organizations that have worked for years for the Garifuna cause. And what I will not tolerate is to try to deny the achievement of those existing organizations, which sadly, that's what I've seen from the Garifuna Nation. I tell young people, whenever I speak, I always start my speech by saying that I stand on the shoulders of those who came before me. And all I'm doing is continuing our legacy, because I like to give credit where credit is due. I never presume that I am the first one that did anything, because as I mentioned before, it's been 30 years since, we've been here since the 30s. The first Garifuna organization registered in New York City was 1946. I wasn't even born then. But I have evidence because I have a certificate of incorporation. Am I going to deny that there were Garifunas before me who actually did some work? No, I'm not going to do that. So again, that is just my opinion as to why I disagree. Although I like the concept of Garifuna Nation, I just don't like the approach that was taken in organizing it.
Jose? Mm-hmm. Yes, I know your organization has joined the Vincentian Diaspora Committee.
Exactly.
Right. Can you tell us what was the motivation? Why you saw that important? Why was it done?
Absolutely. And that takes me back to, and it's important for me to say this, because again, we have nothing to hide. There was a local organization here called Hamalali Wagusha, the spirit of our ancestors in the Garifuna language. That became the most prominent organization here in New York City. That organization eventually got into legal problems. And it's a public record, and again, there's nothing to hide. That organization got into such a serious legal problem that its executive director and founder is today in jail. She was sentenced to 17 years in jail based on immigration fraud. But again, I like to give credit where credit is due. In the early 2000s, that was the prominent organization. They had an office. They were supported by the politicians. 2006 is when this problem begins, and it concludes in 2007. Again, I'm a member of the Garifuna Coalition. We're actively working, and we are watching what's going on. And the board of the directors of the Garifuna Coalition get together, and we come to the conclusion that, you know what, regardless of what, this is happening, but it is a Garifuna organization, and it is an organization that is serving the well-being of the Garifuna community. Therefore, we need to start establishing, trying to figure out how we're going to fill that void. And we did. We actually started meeting with government officials. I always tell that some of my first meetings were not pleasant. I still remember one of the local congressmen whose person told me, you realize that the prestige and credibility of the Garifuna Coalition, Garifuna community in New York is down to zero. And I said, yes, but let me start by saying this. First of all, it's not right to accuse a community for the actions of one person and one organization. Oh, you're right. Secondly, I said, having said that, it's despite the fact that this person is now in jail and the organization no longer exists, the needs of the Garifuna community continue. So therefore, we, the Garifuna Coalition, have decided that we're going to fill that void. And that's how we became actively working here, the agenda. That was when we actually sought tax exemption. We started sending out applications, proposals for funding, and so forth. As part of that, we realized that, well, we came to the conclusion that there was this issue of identity. And what do we mean by that? Yes, we are Garifunas, but at that time, most of the people in New York, other than Garifunas, referred to us as Hondurans. And it's simply because that's the largest population. So one of the things that we decided to do is we need to promote, we need to raise awareness as far as Garifuna. So as the Garifuna Coalition, our initial advocacy campaign was around promoting the Garifuna identity, the fact that we were Garifunas. And we decided that, you know what, we can no longer allow ourselves to be defined by borders. We can no longer define ourselves by flags and national anthems and so forth. Yes, we respect the fact that we all were born in different countries, but we decided that, you know, we need to identify as Garifuna. In that process, we made the link with Saint Vincent. We've always known that Saint Vincent is the ancestral home of the Garifunas, and therefore we decided that, well, if we're really going to promote the Garifuna identity and language and everything who we are, we have to find a way of linking back with Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. So what did we do? We actually called up then General Counsel Cozier, and we set up a meeting with the board of directors of the Garifuna Coalition. We set up the meeting with him. This was back in June of 2008. Eventually, we set up the meeting with Ambassador Lazilia Prince in Washington, D.C. Myself and the then chairman of the board traveled to Washington, D.C. to meet with Ambassador Prince. So we shared this idea with Consul General Cozier of wanting to go back. He got very interested, and he says to us, well, you know, there is the current government is planning Vinci Homecoming in 2009 to commemorate the 30th anniversary of independence, and they would like to have as many Vincentians go back to St. Vincent for that. And we say, well, we think that will be a great opportunity. And he suggested that he will put us in contact with the person that was organizing the Vinci Homecoming in 2009. And when he mentioned the name was Ambassador Ellsworth John, former ambassador to the U.S. for Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. Well, I had met Ambassador John in 2006 during one of my trips to Los Angeles, where I met, and it's important for me to mention, the first Vincentian that I met in 1991, Dr. Cadron Gill, today Deputy Consul General of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for the Western United States. He was the first Vincentian that I met, and that was in Los Angeles in 1991. The second Vincentian that I met was Cornelius Sam, and because we attended a meeting together. But again, in 2006, they invited Ambassador John to Los Angeles, and that's where I met him. So I said, after those meetings, we drafted a letter that we sent to Ambassador John expressing our interest of reconnecting with St. Vincent of the Grenadines, the ancestral homeland of the Garifuna people. And Ambassador John responded. Eventually, he put us in contact. We called to Minister Baptiste, and that was the beginning of what would turn out to be the Garifuna reunion. As part of that conversation, General Consul Cozier said to us, you know, when you come back from St. Vincent, it will be very important for you to establish relationship with the local Garifuna, Vincentian organizations here in New York. So he proposed that when we came back, he will organize a reception in the General Consul office of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for us. So we came back July 23rd, before the end of July 2009. Yes, he did. He delivered. We met at a reception in his office, and that was where we met Maxwell. That's where we met Casago at that time, the Council of Organizations from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That was where we met him, and all the members organizations, hometown associations from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We actually met at an official General Consulate sponsor reception in the council, and that was where I met Maxwell, and that's where we began the relationship. And then eventually, when, as part of, again, Vincent Homecoming 2009, the committee came into existence. Again, trying to organize the participation of the Vincentian diaspora in Vincent 2009. That's how we connected with Maxwell, and we became active members of the committee. When we started, I will attend their monthly meetings in Brooklyn, and as a matter of fact, I was in attendance when Ambassador John came to Brooklyn to present the official launching of Vincent Homecoming to the Vincentian diaspora and so forth. That was how it started. It was our interest to reconnect and understanding that establishing relations with government officials here in New York was the proper way, and it began with General Counsel Cozier, which led to Ambassador John, and eventually the trip that even included dinner at the Prime Minister's residence, and that was actually the result of conversations of Dr. Cadrin Gill, who also traveled with us to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. So again, it's back to 2008, 2009, Vincent Homecoming, and it has continued up to today. I mentioned COSAGO, I mentioned the committee. I will also mention recently I attended the launching of the Garifuna indigenous people of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. These are our brothers and sisters from the Sandy Bay area, that whole section out there, who now have organized themselves as the Garifuna indigenous people of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. And I was invited to participate in the official launching of the organization. So again, we've had that relationship. I know Maxwell very well. I get the invitation. Everything that happens with the committee, I'm aware of it because Maxwell will email me, text me, call me if it needs to, and it's the same thing with the rest of our brothers and sisters.
So, Jose, I'm getting, from your account, I'm getting, as far as the state apparatus is concerned, it has been fully available to your coalition as part of the effort to help with the whole process of identity with the Vincentian community.
I'm sorry, what was that the question?
The question I'm putting to you, I'm saying that I'm getting the impression that the state apparatus has made itself and resources available to you to make sure the effort that you're making with this whole identity issue. Because remember you said earlier that the Garifuna Coalition decided that while they promote the whole Garifuna culture, they needed an identity, and hence the being from the homeland, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, was the collecting dots for all of these persons. And I'm seeing that the state assisted in that process.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I want to,
Go ahead.
I want to go a little further to ask. Persons in the Garifuna diaspora across Latin America and those in the Caribbean and those in North America, the whole identity issue, is it about returning to St. Vincent, or is it about, well, let me show it to you. Is the whole movement about homeland, the ancestral homeland St. Vincent, is it about returning to St. Vincent and the Grenadines?
No. I can flatly say no.
So explain to us.
About identity, it's about ancestry. It's about ancestry. We have known that we are from Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. And again, because of all the changes, communication has become better and better, and we have been able to go back on individual trips. There was a trip back in actually I read the rise and fall of the Black Heroes, the Garifunas, and the authors talk about the fact that in 1970 they met the first Garifuna in Saint Vincent, Mr. Cacho, who was an elder man, and he basically wanted to go back before he passed away, so his son took him there. Then in 1991, our Belizeans brothers and sisters actually went there, and then and he has gone. And my point with that is that, again, we've always known where we are from, but we have taken individual efforts to reconnect with Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. Okay. Now, it's important for me to mention that because Belize is the only English-speaking country in Central America, they were able to maintain their relationship with Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. They were able to do the research and find out the history.
Yes.
Those of us that ended up in Spanish-speaking countries, I am an example of that.
Yes.
Everything that I know, I learned once I learned the English language, and eventually just continued my research.
Yes.
So again, all of that to say. So, but even though we ended up in Spanish-speaking countries, we always knew that we were from Yurume, which is the Garifuna name for Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. We've always known that. Okay, now, when we said that, yes, there was that desire to go back. But at the same time, there was this subsequent realization of identity. The fact that, again, we were in all of these countries, and fortunately, we didn't lose the language. So therefore, as people, we can, whether we are in Nicaragua, Belize, Guatemala, or Honduras, we can speak among ourselves and so forth. But the efforts were slowly, and as a matter of fact, for instance, once again, I'll give credit to the National Garifuna Council of Belize for taking the initiative to seeking the reconnection with Belize, with Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, Honduras, Guatemala, and Nicaragua, there was no effort until 2005. That was when the Garifuna folkloric ballet from Honduras made a trip to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. And that was the first Hondurans to arrive there. I know for a fact that the first Guatemalan went with us in 2009 when we were there. And I know for a fact that the subsequent Guatemalan and the first Nicaraguan were there recently in March for the Garifuna Summit that took place there. So there have been all those efforts, but they have been independent. But all of those efforts have been, again, and I call it ancestry. Why? Because the way I describe it is Saint Vincent is to the Garifunas what Mecca is to the Muslims. Okay? That's the significance of Saint Vincent. A place that we hadn't been there for, let's say, 218 years ago, but we know that's where we're from, and we know that's north, whatever we want to call it. That's what has been the relationship with Saint Vincent. Now, in 2008, when we decided to establish this relation with Saint Vincent, was because from here, the United States of America, there had been no delegation that officially traveled to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines as Garifunas. Again, there was from Belize, there was a couple from Belize, there was from Honduras in 2005, but that was a cultural group. So that's why we said, no, if we really want to reestablish the connections, we have to participate. We have to talk to the officials who are very supportive in every respect. But again, it is not the idea of going back. Yes, it is to go back. Again, just like the Muslims want to go back to Mecca, the Christians want to go back to Jerusalem. And as a matter of fact, I remember the conversation I had with Ambassador John when he asked me, so what type of an event do you want? What are you expecting? And my comment to Ambassador John was, Ambassador, what I will tell you is that it's not a tourist trip, and it's not an entertainment trip. It's to reconnect with the land, and more importantly, reconnect with the people. And his response to me was, so it will be a pilgrimage. I said, exactly. It is a pilgrimage, and we want to reconnect with our people. It was he and his staff did such an excellent job that, again, we not only visited Kingston, we arrived on Saturday. Sunday, we went and lay a wreath on Joseph Chatouillet Monument. We went all the way to Chateau Ballet. We had lunch there. By Monday, we went all the way to Oya Fancy. We had lunch and met in Sandy Bay. We went to Greg's. We went to all the traditional Garifuna villages. That exists till today. Now, honestly, until then, That wasn't spoken about. All that was spoken was the fact of those of us who were exiled. And even myself didn't realize that there was all those communities that still existed. Mm-hmm. I have a picture of one of the paramount, one of the black Arab chiefs of one of the villages that we attended. And so forth. We met the Valentines in Sandy Bay. We had a dinner at one of Dr. Catherine Gill's family, and on and on. So that was the first real connection. But again, it wasn't as far as returning and, let's say, settle down. It was getting reacquainted, reconnecting with the ancestral homeland.
Jose, about 2 weeks ago, I think it was May 31st, Sunday, Mr. Arnim Yusuf, who is the leader of the opposition here in Saint Vincent The Grenadines, was addressed a town hall meeting in New York, in Brooklyn, New York, at the Friends of Crown Heights Center.
Yes.
First of all, were you there? Were you invited to attend that meeting? Did you attend?
No, I wasn't there. I saw the invitation, but I was not there.
But you were invited?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You were invited in your official capacity as a representative of the Garifuna Coalition, or as
no, that I cannot say. I saw an invite through Facebook or flyer, but I did not get an official invitation.
Oh, through Facebook?
Yes.
Oh, I see. All right. So that clarifies that. Now, as you may know by now, I'm sure you know that at that meeting, Mr. Eustace made a promise of honorary citizenship for all Garifunas in the event that his party wins the next general election, which are coming up soon. What is your view on that promise?
What is my view on that promise? Yes, I'm very familiar with it because it's I will say a topic of conversation among a small group of Garifunas who were the ones that were present there. My view of it is...
you said a small group of Garifunas. This is what you said, a small group.
A very small group.
Okay. Fine.
A very small group. But honorary citizenship... first of all, I did my research and I found it interesting that in the United States, in all its history, only 8 people have been granted honorary citizenship. Only 8. And then I read, and I was just to become aware of what is this whole idea of honorary. And the only thing that I can equate it to is an honorary degree. Basically meaning that someone that gets a degree from a particular institution without necessarily having to go through all of that process. So that's how I see it. Is the difference is the process. But regardless of what, when we talk about citizenship, there is a process. There has to be a process. And where I see a lot of some of my brothers and sisters get excited about it. I tend not to get excited about what is said in political campaigns because there's one thing that I have learned is that a campaign is not a government and governing is different than campaigning. And statements like that can be made to a particular segment of the population. However, whoever gets into government must govern for all of the people. So therefore, I'm not too excited about that because, first of all, I don't live in Saint Vincent, and most of the 800,000 Garifunas don't live there. So really, is it about us? Is it about dividing the Garifuna community, and in that sense, the local community? Again, I was born in Honduras. I mentioned before, I was born in Honduras. I came here with a Honduran passport. Yeah, eventually I met the requirements and I applied for naturalization and I became an American citizen. When I became an American citizen, I automatically lost my Honduran citizenship because Honduras didn't recognize dual citizenship. Eventually, around 2001, the government recognized that remittances represent 25% of the Honduras gross national product, and there's about 1 million Honduras here. What if we try to reconnect with them? So as a result, what do? They changed their constitution to allow for dual citizenship. And that's how I now have dual citizenship as Honduran and American. I say that because, again, citizenship, I realize that citizenship is a process. It's a process. But to me, it doesn't suffice to say it as part of a political campaign. I find it interesting that some of the Garifunas that have supported, that were there and are supporting that cause, if we want to call it that, are now really admitting that they don't really understand what it means.
You said they're admitting that they didn't understand what it means?
Exactly. Oh, exactly. Okay. Exactly. I'm seeing an interview here that was done on the Searchlight newspaper.
Yes, that's right.
It says Ramos admitted that he is unsure of what it really means. So when you talk about honorary citizenship, his answer, I don't know what that really means. Okay, now, and then there's this comment, no other political leader has made this proclamation before. Again, is it really about the well-being of the Garifuna people, both those of us in the diaspora and those the brothers and sisters who stayed behind? I really think that this is really political. And again, I've learned not to take for granted what is said during campaigns. Now, having said that, because again, I keep up with what's going on in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, it calls my attention that the same tactic was used as we were planning the trip to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, the reconnection. And at that time, the tactic was attacking the current government and specifically about the sales of Balisol. And the same thing, I found it interesting that the articles that I read were about non-Garifunas, but they were defending the Garifuna, and they were talking, and it's like, I'm going, wait a minute, my people are not even aware of this. The only official document that I saw from the Garifuna community was, again, the National Garifuna Council of Belize, who wrote a letter. But the newspapers Caribbean newspapers will feel about this whole issue of the sale of Balisol. And what I find in common is that was also getting close to an election year. So that's where my doubt about this proposal comes in. And again, especially when some of the people who support it are now saying that they don't really understand. It is a process. It will require a process. And I know that you have to start by making the promise, but it's too early for me to say. And again, understanding what honorary means, that is not really official. It doesn't mean that you have the rights like everybody else. Like in this case, even if we get it, we're not going to have the same rights as those Vincentians that were born there. We're not going to have the same rights as the Vincentians who, even though they were born, let's say, in the United States, are descendants of Vincentians, naturally born Vincentians. It cannot be the same. So, again, that's pretty much my comment on that. Now, I will say, I must say that I've been reading different media and on this whole issue, as I like to prepare myself before I talk in public, and it did catch my attention that one of the articles that I published was about the Garifuna people and Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, which basically details what some of the questions that you already asked me, and it was basically to show that the relationship, the pursuit of relationship with Saint Vincent and the Grenadines doesn't start now. It's nothing new. So that was the purpose of that article. That article was picked up, was published recently by Caribbean News Now, and it was published, and then all of a sudden I noticed that someone had written a comment. Two people wrote a comment. Now I could tell that they were from the opposition just based on what I read, and I decided to respond, and my response was, this is not political. We're not intruding in the political arena in Saint Vincent. This is about the Garifuna people, I said. Now, it was really interesting because one of the persons that responded accused me of the fact that, well, no, actually, the comment was that, oh, well, everything dealing with the Garifunas is political. Well, and then I found an article from this same person, and then I realized, okay, so now I see why this person feels that this is political. And again, I say that because it is really an issue in Saint Vincent, and from everything that I read, is an issue that the opposition has turned and into the diaspora, but trust me, the diaspora is not even aware of it. The majority of the diaspora. That's why I say that a very small group was out there. That's why I also emphasize the majority of the diaspora speaks Spanish. I listened to an interview of Mr. Eustace on one of the internet radio stations. I will tell you that, again, very few people listen to that station. Very few people listen to English language media or read it. So again, so that's where I'm coming with that. Is it actually? I have to read this. I was looking for it, and I'm just going to take some sections of the article that I mentioned, and the title of it is
What date is it?
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, okay, but just quickly, one of the things that is mentioned here, and I'll just go right to the point. Promising such a venture will ensure that the NDP will have a better than even chance of winning what will be a hard-fought election in the constituency of North Windward. Indeed, capturing this seat could well win the next election for either party. And I'm going to myself, and I wrote myself a note. So Garifunas are being treated and used as a battleground state? So is that what this is all about? The Windward section of Saint Vincent? This reminds me of the red state, blue states here in the political spectrum. Yes. But again, when I read this, what this person wrote, it's like, okay, so now I understand why this person feels that everything about the Garifuna is political, even though it is not for the majority of the diaspora. It is not political for me. I will say very clear to my Vincentians brothers and sisters that we are not trying to influence any elections. Everything that I've done, everything that we have done as the Garifuna Coalition, and as everything that we promote is to reunify the Garifuna people and to establish ourselves as a people in the homeland, the ancestral homeland. But we are not part of all of this, and I can assure you that most of the Garifuna diaspora is not even aware of what's going on. But a small group of people have tried to give the impression that the Garifuna are interested in going back, they're interested in citizenship. And I will also say, again, I have been around long enough that the first time I heard that terms, not honorary, but citizenship, was during a town hall meeting in the same location about 2 years ago, except that the speaker was the current Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves. And I'll say it was the same person, Wellington Ramos, who during question and answer asked about the possibilities of issuing citizenship to the Garifuna diaspora. So that was the first time. Having said that, in 2007, I attended a meeting at the UN ambassador, the Honduran ambassador to the UN. And in that meeting, he presented us a document. It's in Spanish. And he said, oh, by the way, I want you to, I want to share this with you. So he gives us copies of, what was the document? He had conversations with the previous UN ambassador for Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, proposing the ability for Garinagu to be able to travel with to Saint Vincent without visas, requiring visas for them.
Exactly.
So that we didn't ask for that. Now I will tell you, I have the document. Because I store everything, I have the document, but was that consulted with the Garifuna community? No. Does the majority of the Garifuna community know that? No. Did I promote that? No. Because again, I saw it as a political move, and not as really. First of all, you didn't consult with the Garifuna people. You didn't consult with the Garifuna leadership. So, what makes me believe that this is really for the best interest of the Garifuna community and not your own interest? And that's my opinion also when it comes to the honorary citizenship for Garifunas in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines.
All right, Jose, we've been at it for a good while, and we thank you very much for that detailed account of your own involvement and the organizations in which you are involved, and the Garifuna people in the diaspora. We want to now open up our lines to invite other persons to call in and interact with you. We don't know if we're going to get any glitch, but bear with us. We're going to try and open up our lines now and see if we can have an interaction with our listeners.
It's been a pleasure.
So the number to call for persons, and we have a first call online, so we're going to take this call, and if you have a difficulty, let us know.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Yeah,
just before you go on, hold on. Let me just establish with Jose. Can you hear that call?
Barely.
Okay, we're going to try and increase the volume a little bit and see what happens. All right.
Is not in studio?
No, it's not in studio, but we have a very clear and it's very clear and very powerful interaction. Yes, go ahead.
Is he hearing me?
Yes, he is.
Go ahead. Well, we'll repeat the question.
Okay.
Just in case, the score is 44 for 5.
All right, we'll tell you that later.
It's really unfortunate that issues such as this to get bogged down in the political divide that we have in Saint Vincent. It's so unfortunate. The question of honorary citizenship. We need to emphasize the word honor and begin by looking at even a generic interpretation of what honorary suggests. As I listen to the discussion, I'm getting the impression that you just made a proposal to give citizenship to all Garifuna. It somehow the discussion tends to morph into that. And once it morphs into that, it gets messy. So why aren't we emphasize the notion of honor? And even if people claim they don't understand what that means, they can begin by assuming the generic interpretation of the word honor.
Conditional?
There was an article in the midweek Searchlight by Dr. Michael Gary Denny, and I think that is spot on. To the extent that he said that the Garifuna has been recognized significantly by this administration, particularly by Dr. Gonzal, and you said, honestly, seems to be a new kid on the block, put it in a certain way, with respect to making pronouncements or articulating positions with respect to the Garifuna diaspora. And he has come to the table, late as it might be, and all he's saying, he will confer honorary citizenship. And I agree with Dr. Denny when he says the Prime Minister should just simply say, well, welcome to the ball game. You're now in sync with us. But his response, I think, is what is creating the division as it would appear now. So Vincentians are divided, and it would appear as if there's some division in the Garifuna community, judging from the two articles in the Searchlight and judging from the contribution from this gentleman now. Right? So, honorary, just a recognition. And I can't see it being not more than symbolic.
Symbolic?
Yes, I can't see them being more than symbolic, because wherever honorary citizenship have been invoked around the world, and you just give an example here, it is just a recognition, a symbolic recognition. For example, when you make a person a knight under the British system of award, he doesn't get just up and go on a horse and start to fight. It's just a symbolic recognition.
But when you... Okay. But this is
let me hold on, Peter, and I think I recognize your voice. Let me just ask Jose if you picked up your statements. Jose, you were listening?
I did not hear anything.
Oh, okay. Well, I think basically he is placing emphasis on the word honorary. He's
honorary.
saying yes. He's saying that really emphasis should be on honorary. Which from what he's saying is simply understood to be symbolic and not anything more than that. So that's what he was responding to.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with that. As a matter of fact, again, I read the literature, and what I find is that other than the ones who are trying to politicize it, there are people who are very rational about it. I read comments. Exactly, it is honorary. The whole issue is turning it into a political statement. That's my issue with it, and that's where I see that the heat of things that are coming up is based on that. But like I said, I definitely understand what it means. But again, as I said, in my position is the fact that I just take it that it's a promise that is made as a part of a political campaign, which will require process once whoever ends up in government. But I'm in agreement. I definitely understand the meaning of it.
Peter, are you following?
Yes.
Okay, yes. You want to...
I have another question.
Okay.
In judging a proposal, one of the questions, a test you could put to it is by asking the question, how would it harm relation between Saint Vincent and the Garifuna diaspora?
How would it?
What harm would come to the relationship?
What harm would come to the nation, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines? The relationship. What harm would come to the relationship between the Garifuna diaspora and Saint Vincent and the Grenadines?
If such a measure takes effect.
If such a measure takes effect.
Would it harm anyone in any way?
Right.
Would it be worse off as a result of that?
Okay, let me put it to Jose and have him respond. Did you hear that question, Jose?
Parts of it.
Basically, he's asking for you to give a view on what harm you think might come to the relationship between the Garifuna diaspora and Saint Vincent and the Grenadines if such a measure were to come into being.
Well, I actually, the relationship is great, and as a matter of fact, there are possibilities whether or not that happens. And why do I say that? I know for a fact that, for instance, I participated in a town hall meeting at the same place with the Minister of Culture and Tourism as part of the revamping of the Saint Vincent and the Grenadines cultural policy. And one of the things that the reason I was invited was because part of the possibilities was turning the Garifuna culture as part of the cultural tourism of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, in my opinion, the largest market for cultural tourism in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines resides in the Garifuna diaspora. starting with here in the United States, where over 200,000 of us just here in New York. And so that's how I see that this relationship will continue. Again, in every effort that has been done by the Garifuna community has been an independent effort to try to establish that linkage. So independent of whether we're granted formal or honorary citizenship, it's not going to change our relationship with Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. As a matter of fact, I'll even say this. I've heard criticism about the airport. But I was there in 2008 when it was started, and I've been there a few times, and I've seen it progress. And one of the things that we've said is that the reason we haven't gone back is because we want to wait until the airport is finished so that we can take the first direct flight from New York to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. I will also say, I'd like to give credit where credit is due. I will also say that we cannot forget that Mrs. Soila Ellis Brown is the founder of the Garifuna Heritage Foundation of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. And she's right there in the ground. She is the one that sponsors the Garifuna Summit. She is the one, her organization is the one that sponsors the Garifuna Research Center. So even as we speak, again, there's already she's the only Garifuna from the diaspora who lives in Saint Vincent. We met with her in 2009. We signed a memorandum of understanding with the Garifuna Heritage Foundation. So I say that because I don't want to give the impression that this is the beginning of the relationship with Saint Vincent. It has been going on. And again, Mrs. Ellis Brown organized the summit that when I mentioned that there was representation from Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and Nicaragua, and even the U.S., they were the ones that organized this. Now, this opens up opportunities for more cultural interchange. I mentioned that the diaspora here in the U.S., most of the diaspora from Central America has never been to Saint Vincent. So again, I see that opportunity of establishing a cultural interchange, a tourism cultural interchange. We have music, we have everything. And being able to work with whoever is in the government of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines to continue to expand those opportunities.
All right, Pigeon.
Yes.
Finally. Yes.
Everything that you have said so far,
yes,
especially in response to my question, suggests that he should not have a problem with the confirmed honorary citizenship.
No, he said he didn't have a problem. He said you didn't hear what he said. He said he has no problem with the concept, but he's going beyond that to go in terms of what it implies. So I think he agrees with that.
In our local discourse, the problem, because the Prime Minister is against it.
No. The Prime Minister is not. No, in our local discourse, people have been saying different things. Nothing to do with what the Prime Minister has said.
No.
This is just me. I could be wrong.
But I think you're wrong.
It's just me saying that.
I think you're wrong.
Prime Minister gave what I call a knee-jerk position, but it was come from Houston.
No, I think you're wrong, because people have been commenting
rather than reflecting in it, and just simply say, well, that is something that we could embrace. Let me hope in the far-fetched chance that he may win the election. Let's see if he will do it.
It's interesting, it's a far-fetched
chance. But when he responded in that way, people encamp themselves and start fighting each other based on that.
No, Pigeon, people encamp themselves long before the Prime Minister spoke. Even from the time Eustace mentioned it. No, people from the time Eustace went in New York and mentioned it. Even from the very meeting, people encamp themselves. In the very meeting itself, in the hall, at the.
And it remains, Cecil is part of our political culture. If the proposal comes from our opponent, we rubbish it.
All right.
Okay.
Let's give somebody else a chance. All right, thanks for calling. All right, that's an interesting take on it. So, Jose still there, right?
I'm still here.
All right, that was our first caller giving his own views on things.
You have another call?
The calls are coming in, but we seem to be having a challenge. I'm not sure if this system is automatically filtering. Let's take this call and hear what the person has to say. Good afternoon, welcome to the program. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ryan.
Good afternoon to you.
And good afternoon to you, Jose.
He can't hear you, but if you speak, we would try and relate to him. But
Oh, he can't hear me.
Yeah, I can barely hear
Mr.
him.
Ryan,
yes, sir.
my name is Doug Howard. I'm calling from New York.
Okay, welcome to the program.
And as a acquaintance, I met Mr. Jose a couple of times, had some conversation with him, eventually joining his friendship on Facebook and having some dialogue with him. Now, over the last couple of weeks, with the pronouncement by Mr. Eustace, our announcement of honorary trips for the Garifuna Nation outside of Saint Vincent The Grenadines, I listened to Jose a while ago explain that he wants, in his opinion, according to him, the Garifunas that he is much acquainted with want Saint Vincent to actually be, and he mentioned the word Eka, like how the Muslim would see Mecca, they make a pilgrimage to Mecca and everything. Nobody is like that. But
I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong.
In the diaspora.
Hey, Doug, do you have your radio on in the background? Or computer?
I have no radio on, no computer, nothing.
Okay, fine. We were hearing your feedback. That's why. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I have an echo in the line.
Yeah. We're having some challenges, but we're managing. Go ahead.
Okay, but I want to ask Jose if he feel that he should Saint Vincent, the Garifuna Nation, should see Saint Vincent as the Israelis see Israel today, because all Israelis.
Let me ask him the question. Let me ask him. Jose,
Yes.
did you hear what Doug has asked? The question.
No, I
What he's saying, and I'm quoting. I want to quote him as accurately as possible. He's asking your views on whether or not you see the Garifuna Nation having the same relationship with Saint Vincent as the Jews have with Israel today.
Well.
Notice I said nation, and I put that in quotation.
Right.
He said that.
And that's the only reason that I'm hesitant, because again, as I mentioned, there is really no official Garifuna Nation, and that's why I continue to emphasize that the efforts have been individual from the diaspora, but now we're getting closer to the point of being an integrated process. As I mentioned, for instance, the summit that the Garifuna Heritage Foundation has sponsored for the past 3 or 4 years, that is a process of bringing us together and being able to talk about that. But again, as I mentioned before, when it comes, I say that Saint Vincent and the Grenadines is to the Garifunas what Mecca is to the Muslims, and what Jerusalem is to Christians, Jewish, and so forth. It is the homeland. It is the homeland, and that's what, individually, that's what we all agree on. That's what we all agree. I always say that when I talked to Vincentius, it was interesting that even before I learned the history, there were few things that were given among us. We all accept that. We all recognize Joseph Chatouillet. We all recognize that he died on March 14, 1795. And we all recognize that Urume, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines is the homeland. And that is across the diaspora.
I think Doug is still on the line. Doug, are you there? No, I think he's gone. I think he was going on to elaborate on his question, because he was talking.
Still there?
He's still there? No, I think he's gone. I think he was going to elaborate to talk about the way in which that relationship is expressed in terms of the Jews and Israel. But he's not there. We have another call online. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Hello. Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Here's something I want to ask the gentleman. Like how Mr. Eustace go in America and try to oppose this thing.
Try to what? Try to what?
Try to bring this thing out with the citizens.
Okay, fine. Try to propose.
Right. Because what happened, I think they just said that they're going to send money for him. I want they're going to send money for him.
Well, let me, if you can go off the line if you wish, or you can move on. Yes, I understand you. I think it's a similar detailing of the question.
I'm understanding with you.
All right, good. Thanks for calling. Yes, Jose.
Yes.
The caller who just called there was asking whether or not, implicit in what Mr. Eustace promised, whether or not he thinks that the diaspora Garifuna would be sending money back to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines.
Sending money back?
Yes.
Okay. Well, those are individual decisions, and again, currently there's really there's really no relationship with the overall diaspora. So I cannot really say that will happen. Most of us, and let me take it back to 2009. I had a conversation with another Garifuna who said to me, "Why did you go to Saint Vincent and stayed at a hotel?" And they said, "You know why? Because we were gone for 216 years and we don't really have any relatives. When I go to Honduras, I have relatives that I can say, can I stay with you? And if I go to Guatemala or Belize, I have done that. But we couldn't do that in Saint Vincent." And again, that's why I emphasize that it is personal, but that relationship hasn't been there. It's slowly being built. So right now, I cannot say that I know any Garifuna who has a relative that can say, okay, I need to contribute. Having said that, I will say this. I know that given the opportunity to invest in Saint Vincent, especially in the areas where Garifunas reside today, our ancestors, that is a possibility. But again, that has to be developed, that has to be negotiated, and eventually I'm very confident that it will happen.
And would you say also that's from an individual kind of perspective?
Exactly. Yes.
So I think that's an extension of the question that Doug was going to ask, but he may wish to call back to clarify.
Okay.
All right. The number to call is 457-9997, and we have another call online. Let's take this call. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
First of all, I want to congratulate you for having Guy on the program. Very interesting program. And I want to go back to Pigeon when he mentioned about the meaning of the term honorable. Because I think Pigeon is spot on when he talk about the meaning of the term, because that is what I understand it to be also. And from listening to the program from the beginning, the guest is also basically when you talk about the honorary degree, basically that's his understanding also. However, right, from listening to Mr. Eustace talking about this thing, I am not getting the impression that his honorary is basically symbolic. Okay? And to me, when Mr. Eustace made a statement like that, it was made without giving it much thought. And I must agree with the guest that it was made in political heat. Mm-hmm. And because when I really think about this thing is a deep thing, and Pigeon asked a second question about what harm it could do. To me, we can't really address that question adequately because we really don't know the details of Mr. Anning's proposal. So we don't know if it would be beneficial or if it would be harmful to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. I mean, I heard the PN asking questions to to clarify this matter. And even in the PM seeking clarity, it became a political issue. But on an issue like this, you have to seek clarity, because the opposition leader never go into detail as to what this whole thing entails. I mean, after some questions were asked, we are hearing him talk about concessions and so on. So that this honorary citizenship can just be symbolic. Because I mean, I really think it's unfortunate that a statement like that should have been made, and I stand on the ground that it was done based on politics, and it is unfortunate that we are bringing these people into this political thing right now. That's my contribution.
Thanks for calling, and have a good day. Okay, Jose?
Oh, yes.
The caller basically congratulated you. Did you hear him?
Yes, I heard that. That was much better.
Okay, fine. Okay. We were making some kind of makeshift thing here. So that's why. Okay, right. Any response to what he said, though?
Well, obviously we are in agreement, and I totally agree, and that's my point, that we cannot really evaluate a statement that again was made in a political campaign, and we cannot discuss benefits, we cannot discuss harm or anything like that right now, and I totally agree with him, and that's my position, that it's unfortunate that the way it was done. Because regardless of what, it's caught the attention. It's put the Garifuna community in the middle, especially the diaspora, which, as I said, is not really, most of the diaspora is not even aware of what's going on.
All right, you have another call online? Oh, we just missed the caller. The number to call is 457-9997 or 532-9997 or Magic Jack 917-310-9999. You have a call online. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
We would have to ask you to lift your voice today because we are having some challenges so that Jose would hear you.
Well. It was just that I wanted to say that, first of all, it's an excellent program. I'm happy that Mr. Jose has joined this discussion. And I myself was, to some degree, confused as to the statement by the Honorable Leader of the Opposition in terms of his proposal, because I mean my wife was involved, part of the Heritage Foundation here in Saint Vincent for many years, and I'm quite aware as to the momentum that was built over the years with the Garifuna here and the Garifuna in the diaspora. So it was coming along quite nicely, as far as I'm concerned. And
you said was? Isn't it still coming along nicely? You said was.
Well, the reason why I said it was in the sense that because of the statement that was made.
The intervention.
Yes, okay. In my opinion, it became political. It appears to be political. Very unfortunate. And I would ask. Myself, others, what is the meaning of, the statement of, citizenship, honorary citizenship, to all Garifunas? I mean, what is the real meaning? And, up to yesterday I had a discussion, and the person who was for it did not even understand what it means. So it is. And I look at the history as well. I said, well, if you had that in mind all the time, then certainly you would have been involved with the Garifuna Heritage Foundation and as it progresses over the years. And certainly one would expect your presence to be there at the obelisk. I'm not looking.
And you say you're as in Mr. Eustace?
Of course.
Okay.
Because to me, how I looked at it over the years is that it ought not to be partisan. Never should we make the relation with the diaspora the Garifuna to be partisan. You know, it is one in which we are discovering more and more that aspect of our lost civilization that was, you know, removed from us. We have no one today in St. Vincent speaks the language. From my observation for those persons that visited Belize, this was quite interesting. In that one of them that was there, I was going to speak to, well, I wanted to speak to him quite nicely and says, man, come tell me something. How was it you didn't bring the load of stone that you had promised to bring for me? And when he turned to me, he spoke to me in Spanish. You know, you take those people, you put them in Kingston, and you would not be able to tell the difference between any Vincentians, you know, living locally. They are Vincentians. There's no two ways about that, you know. And that's the reason why, you know, for those persons who are familiar with the Garifunas, that, you know, you wouldn't be able to just point your finger and say, you know, yes, he or she is a Garifuna. You know, you wouldn't be able to do that. But I'm saying the matter should not be partisan. We should let it develop, and I certainly admire the way in which your host is dealing with the matter.
You mean my our guest?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Your guest, sorry, you know, is dealing with the matter. So, again, the caller that called before me, that I think the whole matter of honorary citizenship was that was announced needed some clarity, because you're going to make this decision if you get into government. You know, and there was no proper consultation with the local Garifuna Heritage Foundation, with the people of Saint Vincent The Grenadines. It certainly has become a divide. You know, so I trust that, you know, on all parties, that, you know, we'll be able to, again, build this relationship. It can mushroom. There are benefits on both sides, but let us not make it partisan. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Good day, Mr. Ryan. This is Kojo Mason.
Kojo Mason, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good.
All the way from the west side of the United States.
I'm from Garifuna of Northern California.
Yes.
And in all our discussions, we never had no honorary citizenship, no citizenship. The only thing that the Garifuna people of Northern California want is to have St. Vincent be considered as the ancestral home, and people in St. Vincent respect that. They want that respect. They need to have that respect. Because right now we're in the process of organizing to bring like at least 200 Garifuna in 2016. That's where we're at this moment.
Why 2016? What's the significance of 2016?
That's the time they marketed themselves, that they could put the money together.
Okay, fine. I understand.
No special.
Okay, fine.
Because to put 200 people together, they have to organize it properly for housing. I have to see if I can find housing for them and all that kind of stuff. Because 200 people, we looking for a place that they could actually live in houses with and experience the St. Vincent culture as it is. Not
Kojo, we have a challenge here, so I wonder if you could lift your voice a little bit.
Okay. I was saying that we need to put them in housing so that they could live and enjoy the St. Vincent culture more so than just a hotel. And that's the reason why 2016 is our number. And in terms of even raising the funds to make it happen. So,
but Kojo, are you working with a counterpart organization here in Vinci on the ground to help you facilitate that kind of program?
Well, when I come home, that's why I will want to sit down with GAHFU Williams and all those folks.
Okay, fine. So you're going to be in for Vinci Mass?
Yes, I will be there on the 26th.
Okay, great. All right.
So there's another question, because there's one person on the radio station keeps mentioning that the word Garifuna means cassava eating people. Could you ask the brother if it's true? Because in my Garifuna dictionary I can't find that meaning.
Okay.
Well, with Jose may have heard the question, so he would respond to you.
I heard most of it, but I didn't hear the question.
All right, Kojo, thanks.
Okay.
I heard most of it, but I didn't hear the question.
He was basically saying that there's a voice on radio who links the Garifuna people with cassava eating, and he wants to know if that is correct or not.
That there is a voice on the radio saying?
Somebody says that the Garifuna are people who eat cassava.
Oh, well, that's one of the many interpretations. Everybody trying to figure out what the word Garifuna means, and that's one of the interpretations that is out there. But it's not. Eventually, we have figured out that it really has to do from the name of our ancestors, Kalinago, and as we started pronouncing that first by the British, and eventually as we moved to Honduras, it became Garifuna. But yeah, that is one of the things that you'll find out there, that Garifuna means cassava eating people. Never really made sense to me, but now that I know more about our history, and especially about our Kalinago brothers and sisters, now I truly understand that where it comes from.
All right. Okay. We have another call online. Let's take the call. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Ryan.
Thanks for calling.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm just calling to ask a question, please.
You have to lift your voice because we're trying to manage a challenge. So please lift your voice so you could hear your question.
That's fine. If you can't hear me, I'm sure you'd repeat it.
No. We want you to lift your voice. I'm not going to repeat it. Lift your voice, please. Try help us.
Okay, that's fine. The question I want to ask is, what would he say to the comments made by Dr. Gonzalez about the Garifuna possibly coming to Saint Vincent?
You're dropping your voice. My friend. What would he say about the question, the response?
What would he say to the statements made by the Prime Minister about Garifuna possibly coming to Saint Vincent to take jobs and occupy land?
Was it a statement made, or was it a question he was posing?
I thought it was a question.
His response to the journalist.
Well, he heard you, and he's saying what I thought I heard is a question which the Dr. Gonzalez was posing. But Jose, can you respond to him?
Absolutely, and I'm glad that he mentioned it. That I saw the video that was circulated on social media. I heard the comments. To me, those were questions, and those were questions from a responsible person who understands that this is not a light matter that you just put out there. These are questions that, what do you really mean? We need more details. And as a Garifuna, and this is my first time explaining my opinion about that video, that's how I interpreted the comments of the Prime Minister. He is the Prime Minister, he is the leader of the country, and if someone makes a proposal on something that is going to affect the citizens of his country, in my opinion, he has the right to ask for those questions and ask him from the person that made the comment so they can explain the process. And that is the difficulty with just making general statements like that, is that there are those of us who wonder, what does this really mean? And again, although people, including some of my people, have criticized the Prime Minister, to me, those were valid questions that needed to be asked.
All right, so we want to again encourage those who are calling. The number to call is 457-9997 or 532-9997, or if you're calling by the Magic Jack, it's 917-310-9999. And of course, if you have not been listening to the program all day, it's we have online Mr. Jose Francisco Avila, President of the Garifuna Coalition of USA. He's speaking from New York, of course. And he's addressing the issue of our relationship, meaning the relationship between Vinci and the Garifuna community, and especially looking at the promise made by promise of honorary citizen made for Garifunas made by the Honorable Arnim Yusuf while he was in New York 2 weekends ago. All right, so if we still have some time to 1 o'clock, so Marlon, you were going to ask something earlier.
Well, two things. First, I want to just read a statement that Fitz just asked. He said,
and Fitz as in?
Fitz Huggins, Council
General in Toronto.
He said, I want to thank you for an excellent program this morning with Cecil. He said, Jose, I want to thank you for an excellent program this morning with Cecil and Marlon on WFM 99.9. It's only through honest dialogue that we can get the issues explained and bring clarity to the confused minds, or should I say minds, M-I-N-E-S. I hope to connect with you next weekend in New York. Thank you very much, Fitz. All right, but
and Council General, thank you very much for that. Those remarks. Yeah, I think.
Quick question to you, Jose.
Mm-hmm. Marlon, can you make a note because we have a call on?
I have a note.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Fine. All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I'd like to congratulate VFM, the host, and the visitor there, right, for this program. I think it's well needed.
Andrew, raise your voice a little first, please.
Well, I'm trying to raise it, but I don't know.
That's good.
Yeah.
That last picture is good.
Once, I would like to ask Jose, he says a political issue, right? But to me, once you're dealing with language, music, and what the thing the Garifuna was acknowledged for as in terms of the works, right? Is all these things not political issues?
I don't understand.
Jose, well, let Jose respond. And
well, let me put it this way: there is a yes, everything is politics in life, but it's not. It shouldn't be partisan. As two callers.
Can you hear him? He's responding.
No, I can't hear.
Okay,
he's responding.
Yeah, two callers before, as he mentioned. The problem is when it becomes partisan politics. Yes, everything is politics. That's the nature of humans. But again, UNESCO, was that a political statement? Well, yeah, identity and so forth. But that is a multilateral organization. That is an international organization, recognizing it. That is not a particular party saying this is what it should be. And because it is UNESCO, for instance, the proclamation was actually, the application was submitted by Belize. But then once it was submitted, it was supported by Honduras, Guatemala, and Nicaragua. And when you read the proclamation, it recognizes all those nations where the Garifuna reside. So that is the difference, is an international decision, an international recognition versus a local partisan statement, political statement.
Andre?
Yeah, I didn't hear, right? But whatever. But all right, whatever he said, right?
Well, he said he essentially though he said he was referring to partisan politics.
Okay. But partisan politics is what the term goes into the whole broader politics. You know what I mean? So, but other than that, right? As far as I see it, is an ongoing process. Because even before the Garifuna Foundation was established in Saint Vincent The Grenadines, there was an organization called National Youth Council and other organizations that journeyed up to the oblast, cleaning it, doing a whole heap of work. And even 2009, when the discussion with where we go as the Garifuna Foundation, I think I was present, and you had to fight to make sure that that part of the history was placed, because it was, as he said, that kind of information coming out in 2008, 9, going up there, like if it was a new discovery, but works was being carried out in Saint Vincent promoting Chate before, and 2001, the whole, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what I would like us to do is to put everything on the table, because even in 2008-9, the homecoming that was discussed, that is an issue that went unabated. It is certain discussion relating to it. Some groups who were involved, things that they did in terms of link with the community and all that kind of thing, were not solved. You know what I mean? In terms of they were doing more cleaning and this and kind of thing. So it's an ongoing process, and we need to put whatever is the best issue on the table in relation to going forward. As I saying, listening, it didn't sound like a question by the Prime Minister to me. It was like, it sounded like it's a statement.
No, it started with what? The statement started with what? What?
Walk and land.
Yeah, he says what?
Like a statement to me.
No, it's a right? What. Anytime you say what is a question. Anytime you start with a statement with what, it automatically is a question.
Okay, right. So, but the whole thing is that we need to put all the things on the table. The whole Baliso was up for sale. You know, I think it's the economic depression that forced the investors not to come. You know what I mean? That might have done gone. If you look back at the history, how much people send letters to say no. You know what I mean? So I think the discussion need to ongoing discussion in terms of the indigenous people and what we do up the oblast, why we had the discussion in terms of having a monument with Shati, what is the status with that? You know what I mean? I think, you know, I glad to hear the history that the brother plays, and then sometimes, you know what I mean, when you're involved in a struggle, he didn't get official invitation, but it was wrong and he knew. But sometimes you had to be in the process to make a decision, you know what I mean, helping the process. Even when the conference that was here recently, it should have been broadened too, you know what I mean, in terms of people who been in the struggle before, you know what I mean. But sometimes you just have to look back, you know what I mean. You just have to stay by the side and look on if certain people alone want to handle it, you know what I mean. But I glad to see that we putting it back on the agenda. I think it did go a little cold, and I'm glad to know that Fitz, you have a role to play too. You're the chairman, I think, of some cultural activities in Saint Vincent The Grenadines, so you need to wake up and do things too. You don't agree with that, Fitz?
Sorry?
You're not the chairman of the Cultural Foundation. So all this is part of the process. So you need to put it not in a radio program like this. This is project promotion, but the Cultural Foundation need to put things out.
I hear you, yeah.
I'm saying, if my memory serves me right, you are the chairman of the Cultural Foundation.
Yes.
Right. So I'm saying now, these are the things we need forum now to discuss these broad cultural issues.
Well, Andre, let me have Jose respond to the issues that you raised. No, because he's hearing you.
But I'm agreeing with him. I agree with him.
But I didn't hear him last time, so you might have to tell me why.
No, listen to your radio. No, listen to your radio and you'd hear what he's going to say.
I turn off the radio.
Oh, no, listen to the radio.
Well, you have to have the phone because we get the feedback.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So, Jose, you want to respond to some of the issues raised by the caller?
Sure. As a matter of fact, and I'm glad that he mentioned, the youth organization and previous efforts. Remember what I said earlier that I always say that I stand on the shoulders of those who came before me, and that is my way of recognizing that the work that others have done. And I'm glad he reminded me because absolutely I do realize that the work that was done by the youth in getting the proclamation of Chatouye as the first national hero. I will also say that I'm glad that I recently visited the Garifuna Research Center, and on that website is every article that was published during that process, which I actually got the hard copies from my friends in the Vincentian diaspora. But this process is not new. This has been ongoing, and that's basically my position. It has been a continuation of that desire to reconnect. I know that when the whole issue with Chatouillet it was part of the independence movement, and accepting the fact, or recognizing the fact that Saint Vincent was not born in 1979. It was a nation. It was a free nation. It was the last nation in the Caribbean to be colonized. And it was as a result of the battle of our ancestors, the Caribs and the Black Caribs, and on and on. That's the history. Except for the fact, and as a matter of fact, it's important for me to mention that one of the quotes that I read in a Vincentian newspaper when that debate was going on about the national hero. And I said this in many presentations. And the quote is, as long as the hunter continues to write the book, the lion will always be the victim. And the person said, it is about time that the lion starts writing the Garifuna history in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. And that is the work that has continued through the Garifuna Heritage Foundation. But again, I do recognize that others have participated. And I also recognize that slowly but surely, everyone that has been involved with the struggle is coming together as Garifuna, as members of the diasporas, and more importantly, as members of Yurume, the ancestral homeland of the Garifuna people.
Mm-hmm. Marlon, you had all you wanted to.
Yes, Jose, as a person who you have established yourself, you recognize yourself as Garifuna. You have been working for the past 20-something, 30 years to push the Garifuna cause. You can hear me?
A little louder?
Yeah. I'm asking the question, if somebody puts on the table citizenship for you, but places honorary as part of this, how enticing does that sound to you? Because just 218 years ago, your ancestors were of this land.
Yes.
Does honorary sound enticing as an offer to you?
Well, you know, in all fairness, let me read you a statement in response to a letter that was written to me in 2008 as we were planning the trip. And I'm just going to make it quickly. And here's my response. I feel that it needs to be in an organized manner, and we need to first engage in dialogue with the government of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines at all levels. That is why I chose the diplomatic approach of reestablishing the links with the country to be able to sit down and negotiate with the government. My idea is that we will develop a program to reconnect the Garifunas Black Caribs with Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, as well as our brothers and sisters who still remain there, including town hall meetings in Sandy Bay with the residents of Oya, Fancy, Overland, Orange Hills, and others. I am proposing the establishment of a Garifuna delegation that will be responsible for maintaining the dialogue with the Saint Vincent and the Grenadines government, as well as the diplomats in the USA. To that end, I have scheduled a meeting next week with Saint Vincent and the Grenadines ambassador to the U.S., Honorable Cecilia Prince, to talk about Vinci Homecoming 2009, the Garifuna reunion, and plan to do the same with UN Ambassador Camilo Gonzalez. Once we have engaged the government officials and set the rules of engagement, we can negotiate a mutually beneficial agreement. That's my response until 2008, and that continues to be my position. It's not whether it's honorary, is the fact that it needs to be negotiated. We need to be at the table. There need to be representatives from the diaspora, Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, Belize, the U.S., and the local Garifuna communities of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, and including the general population of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. So again, it's not something that I can say yes or no, but to me, it's a process. It's a process. And that process involves many participants. Should involve many participants.
All right, we still have a few minutes. Damon is allowing us a few minutes on the program, so we can take one or two more calls, and I hope that's okay with you, Jose. We have a call online. Good afternoon, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon again.
Could you move away from your radio, please? Please, hello, just move away from your radio. Okay,
I want to ask a question. Like how the citizenship is think about. If the citizenship come true, the people from America, like our brothers, is coming home to live entirely?
Well, look, Jose answered that already, and he said that's highly unlikely.
I didn't hear you, man.
You need to listen. Yeah, but he answered that already. He said highly unlikely.
Okay.
All right.
We are brothers.
Right.
No problem if they come home.
All right. Thanks for calling. Yes. Yes, the number to call is 457-9997 or 532-9997, or if you're using the Magic Jack, is 917-310-9999. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Good afternoon, caller.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, you're on the program. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Can we ask you to lift your voice a bit, because we're having a little challenge. We're trying to manage it. In order for Jose to hear you.
I don't know if you can hear me a little better.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm of Vincentian. My grandmother was born in Oya. And I say that to say I identify with the Garifuna people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm willing to say what everyone, in my opinion, has not been saying. That is, my unequivocal condemnation of Mr. Arnim Eustace for trying to use the Garifuna people as political pawns in his quest to become Prime Minister of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. I totally do not like that idea. He is clearly setting out to use the Garifuna people as political pawns, and I am total condemnation of that whole objective.
Can I ask you where you're calling from, caller? Where are you calling from?
I am a Vincentian and I live in New York City.
Did you attend the town hall meeting?
No, I did not, but I looked at it live on television.
Okay. On stream, yes.
I looked at the stream live.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Totally agree with my brother. Totally agree with his statement.
Okay.
Jose, in Honduras, there seems to be a number of challenges with the Garifuna people, especially with the ownership of land. Is there anything from a state level, a diplomatic level, that might be exciting to person, something that we can do, statement at United Nations? Is there something that we can do in support of the brothers and sisters in Honduras and across the diaspora who are meeting those kind of challenges?
There are challenges, and it's the reason Honduras is mentioned is again because it's the largest population. The largest population still remains there, but there are issues in Guatemala. There are issues in Belize. There are issues in Nicaragua, and interestingly enough, they all revolve. The main issue is land, the loss of land.
Yes.
As far as being able to, I wished that rather than spending time and energy dealing with a political statement, we will find a way to come together and deal with the issues that are relevant and more crucial to us as a people.
Exactly.
And in that case, we will be planning, in my opinion, conferences, press releases, teleconferences, where we can mobilize our brothers and sisters, for instance, from Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, to talk with the Honduran elected officials, or be able to call in radio stations and so forth. That's my wish, and I really feel that that's what we need to do. To answer your question right now, that will be nearly impossible. And why? Because there's really again, for instance, I'll mention the Garifuna Nation. The Garifuna Nation does not have a direct connection to those countries. That is not involved with those causes. Now, we all know, including all members of the Garifuna Nation, know who are leading those movements. And I think that what we need to do is establish those relationships with those local organizations and create a support system. That's the desire, but currently, honestly, there's not much that can be done from the outside.
But Jose, do you think the state can use its means to facilitate what you're saying? For example, I know not long ago the Prime Minister was one of the foremost spokesperson on the question of what was happening to the Haitians in living in the DR, and he has the whole question of Taiwan. These are statements made at the UN whenever we present our position there. Do you think something like this that Marlon has raised is something that an issue that can be couched in that UN presentation?
It could, and I'm glad you mentioned the UN and the statements that the Prime Minister has made, because, and I will say it, one of the things that, one of the reasons I decided to get involved again was to sort of emphasize that this is, the relationship is not new, but at the same time, besides the video, it was also trying to discredit what the Prime Minister has done. And I will tell you this, because I researched it and I followed it. He was the...
Oh, I think we just lost him. We just lost him on Skype, actually. We might try again? Oh, yes, you're there. Okay, fine.
Okay, yes, I'm here. He was the first person, official, to bring the reparations issue in the UN. He was the first one to include the Garifunas as far as the reparations movement is concerned. He was the first person to talk about the slave movement and so forth, which resulted in a conference in 2007 and the building of a monument, and on and on. So regardless of what, again, those are the things that, and this is not partisan. It's just someone who cares about his people and recognizes when someone is doing good for those people, even though they have been away for 218 years. And all of that to say that, yes, those statements at the UN do have an impact, and they will go a long way. Because once he does that, the president of Honduras is going to be there, and he's going to hear it. The ambassador to the UN from Honduras is going to be there. And because the prime minister has relationship with the Garifuna diaspora, he can say, he can suggest that they meet with the Garifuna diaspora. You know, and again, I have to say this, and I said it at one of the town hall meetings where the Prime Minister Gonzalez participated. And this is not something that he told me or any of his. This is me. And what I said was that it's interesting that I have attended town hall meetings with the Prime Minister Saint Vincent and the Grenadines since 2009. I have not attended a town hall meeting with the president of Honduras at all. I just know that he comes, but he doesn't reach out to the local diaspora. So that's where I see that, yes, the prime minister saying it at the UN, suggesting it to the president of Honduras, suggesting that they reach out to the local diasporas like he has, I really feel that will make a huge difference.
All right, we have another call. Let's take this call, maybe the last final one. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ryan.
You'd have to be quick because we're just running out of time. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I know that. I'm hearing two dissenting voice in the Garifuna in my blood community. One appears as though it's for the coming home of our people. The other one seems as though it is not for. I want you to ask the gentleman there on which area of the dissenting voice he is. He for the coming home of Garifuna people, or he is one who maybe are there for the hindrance of them coming home? So I want you to ask him that question.
All right, so
yes,
okay, thanks for calling.
I heard the question.
Yes, okay.
Let me start by saying that I am neither pro or con. I have been home. I led a delegation to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines in 2009, and I have been promoting the linkage with Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. That's my background. Having said that, the others, on the other side, none of them has been to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. I went to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines for the first time in 2008. And I went because when we were planning the reunion in 2009, and I said to the board of the Garifuna Coalition, we are planning this reunion, but none of us has been to Saint Vincent. How are we going to lead a group of people to a place where we have never been? And as a result, myself, Mr. Rahil Solis, who was the chairman of the board at that time, and Ms. Marcia Gomez, who was the vice president, and I was the treasurer, traveled to St. Vincent in November of 2008 to participate in the official launching of the Vinci Homecoming 2009. It was right there. It was there that we met the Prime Minister Gonzalez for the first time. It was there that we met Cultural Minister Baptiste. It was there, and that was the beginning of the relationship. So again, to say that I am not I have been to St. Vincent, and I have led a delegation. The others speak of going back because they haven't been to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And it's important for my brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to understand that. That's why we need to be careful with the messages that are being sent out there. And one of the questions that I always ask, have you been to St. Vincent? Have you been to Honduras? I know there have been sanctions on the opposition talking about Honduras who have never been to Honduras, have never been to Belize. I've been to all those countries. I know who the players are in each one of those countries. So again, in conclusion, I am not pro or con. I am part of the movement that has been to St. Vincent, continues to promote St. Vincent and the Grenadines as the ancestral homeland of the Garinagu.
All right. Well, it seems I know a number of persons have been trying to get into the program, and we couldn't accommodate all. In particular, I saw one particular name, a very popular name, showing up on our screen. But I'm not going to call his name. But if he wishes to call, he can. Maybe he wishes to get in as our final call for the program. If he doesn't, then Jose, I don't know if you want to say anything else, anything more in terms of in conclusion.
I want to thank you for this opportunity. I want to thank my brothers and sisters from St. Vincent and the Grenadines there in the island and across the diaspora. I want to say that I have had the privilege of being to St. Vincent and the Grenadines about 4 times. I have been to Sandy Bay. I saw the Garifuna Bakery. I saw Garifuna Radio. And more importantly, I share with my brothers and sisters from across that area. In conclusion, it is about reconnecting with the homeland. It is about our ancestry. It is about the legacy of our ancestors. The paramount Garifuna chief, Joseph Satuye, the first national hero of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That's our linkage, my brothers and sisters. That's what unites us. It is not a matter of citizenship. It's a matter of ancestry. It's a matter of legacy. And it cannot be denied that St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Yurume, Haruna, is the ancestral homeland of the Garifuna. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
And thank you very much, Jose, for being part of the program this morning. As you might know, and you're feeling, people have learned a lot from what you've been saying. And I'm sure the conversation is going to continue, the discussion is going to continue with a lot more meaning now and more clarity and more understanding. So thanks again for being on the program, and we thank also Fitz for helping to facilitate it. We had some challenges, but we think it has been a very good program. Thank you very much, Jose. Have a very pleasant day.
All right, thank you. You do the same.
Okay, fine. So, Marlon, that's about it for us. We've had a very interesting, engaging program this morning.
This week, only to tell persons that we're working over the weekend.
I have to make one observation, though, and I need to quickly, and I hope Damien won't mind, because it affects Damien too. Traveling down and up, I noticed that on the construction site on top of the road, along the road where they turn the drainage and so on, a lot of exposed steel pieces and so on, and there's no caution. I think the contractors or whoever it is need to address that. It kind of poses some kind of elements of danger.
Okay. Yes, as you quite rightly say, it's contractor's responsibility. I noticed some tape. That's something that we could always pick up. But well, we're out of time, so I guess
I just want to draw to the attention, I know it can pose some danger, so we would want to deal with it immediately.
Yeah. Okay.
Aside from that, the work is going on, and we appreciate that. Yeah. But just that this small thing, they may wish to give attention to that.
All right.
Yes, Damien, thank you very much for hosting us and for being so creative in terms of facilitating the communication, as always. So thank you very much. So for those, again, persons who called and listened, thank you very much. Thanks the management of Star FM and Garifuna Radio.
Yeah. Next week we should try and get Mr. Ramos online.
We'll try, but I can't give any guarantee that we would work it out. But yes, in the meantime, my name is Cecil Ryan. Good afternoon on behalf of Marlon.